Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. Friends and family of a Nunavut woman killed in Ottawa on Christmas Day gathered at a local church for a memorial in her honor. Jolene Arreak grew up in Pond Inlet and was known in Ottawa for lending a helping hand to locals in need. Ahead of today's service, we spoke to people who knew Arreak about the person she was and the legacy she leaves behind. Guy Kenville has her story.
Alexander Walters first met Jolene Arreak 20 years ago on Rideau Street.
She was handing out hamburgers to the homeless and like just, being spirited, high-spirited and, being out there for the people.
That was Arreak, according to those who knew her. Selfless, giving, or as Walters put it, a superhero. Walters says she used to come to parts of downtown Ottawa like this and talk to people on the street, giving them food, cigarettes, and even hugs.
She gave the best hugs. It was very unexpected. We just spoke the week before, and it was just hard to hear.
Arreak was 46 years old. She died on Christmas Day in what police say was a criminal act, a 35-year-old Ottawa man charged with second-degree murder. Walters was engaged to Arreak, and they were planning to start a family together.
It was the scariest day of my life. There's so much uncertainty with every moment of life that taking a moment to just hug someone and tell them I love you will make that much of a difference.
Arreak grew up in the small Nunavut community of Pond Inlet and felt strongly about documenting her culture on film. CBC interviewed her once in 2006 when she was working with digitized footage of elders.
There's more production companies that are being established in Nunavut, so that's proof that it's working, it's going somewhere.
She talked about those interviews because they were with elders and they were very near and dear to her heart. Family to Jolene was the world.
Arreak's shocking death comes 15 years after her sister and her two nieces died in Nunavut's capital in what was widely viewed as a murder-suicide perpetrated by a man. Walters says that traumatic event shaped Arreak for good and bad.
There wasn't a day that would pass by she would not speak about her. But the thing about Jolene is she has this ability to always bring light into a situation, to always turn it into, it's like extreme optimism. She finds a way to make it understandably realistic and be able to cope.
Now people are left to mourn Arreak's own death. Her family gathered in Pond Inlet earlier this week, and she was remembered by friends and relatives in Ottawa today. Guy Kenville, CBC News, Ottawa.
The trial of former Yellowknife City Councillor Robin Williams continued today. The defense attorney questioned a woman who alleged she was assaulted and sexually assaulted by him multiple times. Luke Carroll has the latest.
A warning that the following details may be considered disturbing. A woman took the stand at the Yellowknife courthouse and responded to various questions from a defense lawyer. They were about her memory of incidents she alleged occurred between 2014 and early 2023 with former Yellowknife City Councillor Robin Williams. The woman's identity is protected by a publication ban. She'd alleged in one incident that Williams dragged her by her hair and spat chewing tobacco on her. A photo of her with what she said was chewing tobacco on her face was presented to the judge and jury. But Williams' defense attorney Evan McIntyre asked her if the chewing tobacco had ended up on her accidentally during an argument with Williams. She said that wasn't what happened. McIntyre also presented a different photo to the judge and jury. He says it was taken shortly after the first, with no chewing tobacco on her face. But in that photo, her hair was more messy. McIntyre asked her if she had purposely messed up her hair more for one photo and had purposely taken a picture featuring the chewing tobacco for the other. She denied this. The woman was initially mistaken about the order in which the photos were taken. When questioned about this by McIntyre, she said, quote, "Reliving this is very hard," end quote. McIntyre responded by saying it is also hard for his client, Williams. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The trial of a former Catholic priest who worked in Nunavut begins on Monday. Arreak faces new charges for historical crimes. It's not the first time he's faced charges for abuse while he was a member of the clergy. TJ Deere has more.
Arreak is facing 8 new counts of historic sexual assault. The former Catholic priest was previously convicted of 32 offenses for sexually abusing people in Igloolik. Most of them were children. For those charges, he was sentenced to 19 years in prison. The judge wrote in his decision that Dieger's, quote, selfishness has devastated a generation of young Roman Catholic parishioners in Igloolik, unquote. Dieger was also convicted in 2022 of sexually abusing children in Alberta. For the 8 new charges, Dieger was arrested in Kingston, Ontario in June 2023. Court documents say the alleged assaults took place in Igloolik between 1978 and 1982. The former priest worked in Nunavut during the 1970s and 1980s. He was born in Belgium but became a Canadian citizen in 1977. Dieger was granted bail as long as he honored a court-appointed curfew at a correctional facility in Kingston. He was banned from entering Nunavut except for court appearances, where he will have to be in custody. Father Ken Thorson of the Oblates of Mary Immaculate previously told CBC News that they, quote, condemn any acts of sexual abuse, including those that Arreak Dieger is alleged to have committed, unquote. The reason for his bail being granted is subject to a publication ban. The trial for the new charges is set to last 2 weeks. TJ Deere, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The government of the Northwest Territories says it's contained a data breach that affected software used by schools in the territory. It's part of a larger breach that affected Canada, the United States, and other parts of the world. The software is called PowerSchool. It's widely used and it stores information on students, parents, and teachers. PowerSchool says it became aware of the incident on December 28th. The Office of the NWT Chief Information Officer says it's investigating. A news release yesterday outlined districts affected by the breach. They include the Beaufort Delta Divisional Education Council, the Decho Divisional Education Council, the South Slave Divisional Education Council, Yellowknife Catholic Schools, and Yellowknife Education District Number 1. The territorial government says impacted students and staff will get updates directly from their education body. Imperial Oil is facing charges for one of 2 leaks at its mine in northern Alberta. 9 charges stem from a leak of millions of liters of wastewater. The charges allege the company failed to mitigate environmental damage caused by it. As Travis McEwen reports, the chief of one local First Nation has little faith the charges will lead to accountability.
This is Imperial Oil's Curl Oil Sand Mine, 70 kilometers north of Fort McMurray. It was the site of 2 significant leaks. The most recent was in February of 2023. The Alberta Energy Regulator, or AER, says Imperial faces 9 charges related to an overflowing berm. Over 5 million liters of tailings contaminated wastewater spilled out from a catchment pond. The charges allege the company failed to immediately report it to the regulator, with a failure to take steps to contain and mitigate the damage. It also includes charges of releasing the substance into the environment that could have adverse effects. In a statement, Imperial Oil says it sincerely regrets that the incident occurred and that its reprogrammed equipment, updated sediment management processes, along with increasing inspections and training. AER has declined further comment, stating that the case is now before the courts. The leaks are a major concern for the nearby community of Fort Chipewyan. Questions around gaps in communication to the local First Nation, as well as concerns around environmental impacts on the land and water. For Chief Alan Adam, the charges come too late, and he's not convinced it will bring accountability.
Maybe that's welcoming news for the community in that, but what about the AER? Who's going to hold them responsible for not reporting this information to the community and continue to stand behind the report saying that everything is okay?
For some environmental advocates, these charges could equate to millions in fines or potential jail time.
When you have essentially the largest or one of the largest spill incidents in the history of the province, would also be essentially the largest penalty issued in Alberta history.
Imperial Oil's first court appearance is set for February 26 in Fort McMurray. Travis McEwen, CBC News, Edmonton.
The race is on to replace Justin Trudeau as Liberal leader, and the Yukon's Member of Parliament is already endorsing a candidate. Brendan Hanley has hitched his wagon to Mark Carney. Carney is the former head of the Bank of Canada. Hanley says his experience in economic matters will be an asset. Carney was born in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, and Hanley thinks Carney understands the importance of First Nations leadership, Arctic sovereignty, and security.
I'm really putting my weight behind Mark Carney because I see a real opportunity here. I want to support him. I think he has something great to offer, not just for Canadians, but for Northerners and for Yukoners.
Hanley says he's heard from many Yukoners who support Carney. Carney launched his leadership campaign yesterday. Former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland announced today that she will also seek the Liberal Party leadership. Nunavut Premier PJ Akiaguk says Wednesday's meeting between the premiers and the Prime Minister was constructive. The meeting was focused on how Canada can work with the United States on future projects, as well as how to respond to Donald Trump's tariff threats. Akiaguk wants to assure Nunavut that his government is pushing hard to establish dual-use infrastructure like hydro. He says it'll serve Canada's Arctic defense goals and benefit Nunavut.
When you look at all those projects, those are nation-building projects that really excites me. And that is something where I see an opportunity where we could continue to push and hopefully see these investments come through from these moments.
Canada's premiers will go to Washington, D.C. next month. Akiaguk says he'll use the trip to talk about Nunavut and the potential impact tariffs would have on the territory's economy. Meanwhile, Justin Trudeau's government says it is ready to retaliate against Donald Trump if he follows through with his threat to impose that 25% tariff on Canadian goods on the first day he takes office as U.S. president. That happens on Monday. But Ottawa says it now has a plan for an immediate counterattack. The CBC's Kate McKenna has the details.
The Prime Minister's message is that Canada has a plan as industry braces for impact.
The single biggest advantage Canada has is Canadians themselves.
Today, Justin Trudeau met with his new U.S.-Canada Council, a nonpartisan group of business and policy leaders convened to deal with the tariff threat.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you could all hear me online. It's great to see everyone here today.
He told them Canada's ready to hit back if Trump moves ahead with a 25% blanket tariff on Canadian goods.
This could be devastating. This would be basically starting a trade war. The Americans would be starting a trade war against us.
CBC Radio Canada has learned the Trudeau government is planning a first round of counter tariffs to be released as soon as Monday.
The expectation is that the first round of response, should they have to go to that level, would have a relatively minimal impact on the Canadian economy, but would get the attention of key stakeholders south of the border.
The plan targets $37 billion in American goods. If that doesn't work, there's a second retaliatory tariff list that targets $110 billion of American goods. Canadian officials say everything is on the table.
We're fighting for our country, we're fighting for our economy, and we're fighting for Canadian jobs.
New revenue from tariffs could support workers and businesses caught up in the trade war.
We want to make sure that ultimately, indeed, we use the revenues to support Canadians.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister spent time in Washington, telling Republican decision makers it'll be American consumers who end up paying more.
A lot of senators are very surprised by the numbers we're giving them. A lot of senators have never heard about this Trump tariff tax.
Since Trump first made his tariff threat, Canadian officials have been working nonstop, appearing on American TV, meeting with American lawmakers, and even visiting Trump himself at Mar-a-Lago. But it's still not clear what's going to happen when Trump returns to the Oval Office on Monday. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Kanuipita National Inuit Health Survey team is going to every community in Nunavut, speaking to Inuit about their health and wellness. And every answer will help us as Inuit determine our own priorities for a healthier future. Together, we will answer the question, Kanuipita, how are we? Find out when we're coming to your community. Learn more at qnihs.ca.
I've never seen anything like this before.
The situation has changed very quickly.
How many are inside?
From what we can tell, 3 bank employees and 6 patrons.
I'm gonna go in.
Fitz, you're so cute. You know, I did hostage negotiation training with the Parisian tactical unit, and I'm actually really good.
Okay. We go together. She's got FOMO. We're coming in!
It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
All of this, just single detached homes.
Yes.
What do we know? I think we can explain.
About that with Andrew Chang. Detective Constable, let's go.
Don't discount her instincts. She'll follow them with or without you.
Is that right? Police, open up!
Show yourself!
In my experience, it's best to know what she's thinking.
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
Cost of living hurts everybody.
Connecting politics to people.
Win, win, win.
We are not going back. Sundays, join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
The whooping cough outbreak continues in Igloolik. 6 cases have been reported since December 13th. The hamlet was forced to cancel public gatherings for Christmas to help reduce the spread of the disease. Nunavut's chief public health officer says people who have had whooping cough are doing well. Public health is encouraging people to reduce the risk by staying home when sick and getting immunized.
The thaws can be prevented by immunization and vaccination, so we encourage everyone to get immunized and ensure that they are protected and they are protecting their loved ones as well.
Anyone experiencing symptoms of whooping cough should contact their health center. Ajiman says it'll take time to declare the outbreak as over, since whooping cough has a long incubation period and can be infectious for long periods. The Yukon government is launching new health cards for the territory. It says they'll have more secure features. All Yukoners will get a new card over the next year. And as Chris McIntyre found out, some are already saying out with the old and in with the new.
So for the past 40 years, Yukon's health card has come in the form of a sticker that you put on a card like this. Every single year, a sticker would come in the mail and you were required to replace it over the previous year's sticker. Sometimes your card would look like this.
It's a bit cumbersome in getting the new sticky every single year to update your card, and then it just ends up getting thick and you try to rip it off and it doesn't necessarily work that well.
Now the Yukon government is modernizing the look, and so I went to ask Yukoners what they felt about it.
When we go outside to visit people, they're not going to laugh at our healthcare card anymore. This looks fine, it looks professional.
I can't help but say yes. Who wouldn't appreciate a more modern look of a health card? And yeah, why wouldn't we promote it?
I didn't know there was any new ones.
Yukoners will begin receiving the new cards throughout the year. The new card will include features like improved and more advanced security features such as anti-scam patterns, organ donor status, French language support, extended healthcare and pharmacare benefit details, and no more yearly stickers. Yukoners are encouraged to make sure their address is up to date so that their new health card arrives on time. Once received, cardholders are asked to securely dispose of the old one by cutting it into pieces. Chris McIntyre, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Iqaluit's Pirurvik Center saw a full house at the grand opening of its new location. Pirurvik is an Inuit-owned language school. Staff say the new space will enhance its ability to support Inuit well-being, Inuktitut learning, and cultural awareness. The new space will allow current programs to expand and increase operational hours. Siku Rojas is a student at Pirurvik. She says she's excited about more opportunities for daily classes and extra time to practice speaking Inuktitut.
It's so new, it's so nice. It's definitely made us feel excited to learn, and like it was proper. It's a proper space for a really important program and important school that needs this.
The founder and president of Pirurvik says the previous space was too small, which meant many classes had to share a space. The old location, which Pirurvik operated in for 10 years, also had maintenance issues.
It's a beautiful location. It's beautiful and we're happy, even being in a more spacious place, because it's uncomfortable being in a crowded place. We know with stuff like that, it will be perfect for us for a while, so we're happy.
Pirurvik says the public is welcome to come check out the new location. The Yukon's had some record-breaking warm weather this winter, so how is all that affecting hibernating animals? A senior wildlife biologist with the Yukon government says mild winter thaws can have cascading impacts in the ecosystem. Thomas Jung says all wildlife is affected, and some animals are even at risk of not surviving the winter.
For those species that are tucked away in their burrow underground, all of a sudden they start getting water into their burrow, and it can be detrimental. Some species can flood. Bears are a little bit different than ground squirrels in terms of they're really not deep hibernators. In fact, they're shallow hibernators. So it doesn't take much to arouse a bear that's hibernating in a den. So yeah, warm weather or perhaps water entering their den may trigger them coming out of their winter hibernating den for sure. If the snow gets too hard, it makes it difficult for species like caribou to run in the icy snow. It's probably a bit discomforting because it's working away at their shins and they're a little bit slower. So running from predators like wolves is a little bit more challenging.
Jung says when temperatures drop again, animals naturally go back to hibernating. The Northern Life Museum and Cultural Center in Fort Smith is hosting an exhibit that blends artistry and tradition. Tapas is a display of contemporary beaded dog team blankets, as well as some historic ones that have been preserved at the museum for the last 75 years. Carla Ulrich has that story.
That's for Chihuahua. Ricky.
Curator Isaiah Wilson says the exhibit isn't just about showcasing beautiful beadwork, but also preserving a part of Northern history. The project highlights the cultural importance of dog teams and the artistry behind these unique blankets.
A lot of the time when you talk to elders of the communities, they'll talk about how they remember trappers coming in the Christmas time or holidays with all their dogs done up in beautiful dog blankets, and it's just a point of celebrating both the return of the trappers, but their connection with their dogs and how important they are.
One of the artists is Debbie Dillon. She says the project held special significance for her.
I think it was important because it's a part of history, and not many people have the opportunity to make traditional tuppies. And my great-grandfather, Andrew Kniese, was part of the Dawson Patrol remake, and he had a dog team. I'm pretty sure, my mom told me that they had prepared and helped make these dog blankets for his dog teams. So I thought it was a good way to connect with my culture and learning more about the whole process of making dog blankets. They are something that isn't very common anymore, and I think that trying to revitalize some of this history is important to keep it going.
Dillon says it was important for her to learn how to make the blankets because it connects her to her family history, and she also wants to eventually pass on that skill to others. Dylan is one of 6 artists from across the north who learned how to make the dog blankets during a 20-week residency. This was led by Adele Arsenault, who is a Cree and Métis artist from British Columbia.
It highlights the fact that our relationship to dogs was destroyed through colonialism and taken from us. It is such a thing of joy when people see this exhibit and hear those bells, and it's something that people don't see every day.
The exhibit runs until the end of the month. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
Just beautiful. Environment Canada says it is set to be a cold weekend across parts of Canada. Arctic air is rushing in and bringing snow, wind, and frigid temperatures with it. Meteorologists say temperatures could drop by as much as 30 degrees in parts of the country over the coming days. Parts of Nunavut could feel as cold as -58. Definitely want to check the temperature before you head outdoors this weekend. With that in mind, let's take a look at the weather. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
The question is,
I want to ask you, but
why is this such a big deal?
what does the science say?
What was their reaction?
What are we talking about here?
Who told you?
So, to be clear,
What would you say to them?
what is the actual story there?
Big question is what's going to happen tomorrow?
Let's talk about some serious topics now.
What should you do?
What happened?
What are you going through?
Tell us about that moment.
What she means by that.
How would they have known that?
What we're hearing from people is
I think we can explain. How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
Russian scam here. Shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job?
Yes.
at Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is. Stream anytime. CBC News.
Being Black in Canada, a space for news, documentaries, arts, and more, celebrating a uniquely Canadian perspective on Black issues, with the cultural moments that matter to Black Canadians. Visit cbc.ca/Being Black in Canada.
We're here to get it done!
We're here to show up and show off!
Here we go, let's play the feud, Canadian style, here we go!
Family Feud Canada. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Detective Constable.
Don't discount her instincts. She'll follow them with or without you.
Go yourself!
In my experience, it's best to know what she's thinking.
I've never seen anything like this before.